Well, let me start kind of from the perspective of where I'm coming from and
Yeah.
why I am, where my passion is for this. I have a lot of desire to be able to use Bitcoin as a form of money in terms of all of the functions of money. So, not just being able to use it to store my value, but also to be able to transact in real time with people through what we would refer to as a medium of exchange. And so, being able to pay for things, you're buying your goods and services in Bitcoin, and also receiving it as payment. Um, and in my opinion, this is super important for Bitcoin to proliferate and to garner adoption from people. Because if we can't utilize it as a medium of exchange, and this is something that I've referred to many times, Bitcoin cannot save you from something like a CBDC, a central bank digital currency, unless you can use it as a medium of exchange currency and self custody it. That is the part of Bitcoin which allows us to be able to protect ourselves from potential government overreach or certain invasions of our privacy, censorship. And so using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange is extremely important to me. But there was a point a few years ago where I had really kind of just been waiting for somebody to build a product that made this easy. And part of my orange pilling process was going around and trying to get different small businesses to start accepting it as payment. And I had some degree of success with that with my local group. And we got some people to use certain products. I'm not going to get too specific on what those were, but there were certain fallbacks or certain pitfalls, I would say, to some of the solutions that we were providing people. And long story short, most of them had either, they had one kind of an issue or another, and there were just too many problems. It wasn't user friendly enough, the solutions that we were presenting. Um, and I'll mention one because it's probably the most popular, and they, in my opinion, do the best job. They're kind of the Bitcoin standard and the gold standard kind of reference there. But BTC Pay Server, I'm sure you guys
Mhm.
have heard of BTC Pay Server. Most people have. They do a fantastic job, and I would definitely say they paved the way for a lot of this. In my opinion, one of the challenges with BTC Pay Server, though, is it is not nearly as user friendly as the fiat options. And so when you go try to present the solution to a merchant, it's a huge step. And maybe eventually they can get to that where they're running their own Lightning node and they're managing their own liquidity and balancing their channels. But not everybody's ready for that.
No,
And
no.
so that's why I did started Manna. It was so that these merchants could now have a platform where they could start accepting Bitcoin right away in a matter of seconds without needing to worry about all this additional complexity, but you still weren't giving up your keys to somebody else. And so we had to make sure that it was something where you could custody your own keys. Nobody could censor you. Nobody could control, what you did on the platform. You owned your data. We don't collect any data. We don't even collect an email address. So no user data whatsoever. You don't even need to be human to use Mana. It works for bots too. Maybe in the future we'll get more into that integration. Right now, I'm pretty sure all of our users are human. That's just a guess though, but they don't have to be. I mean, for example, my 9-year-old, she can't legally open a bank account in my country, but she can run Mana, and so we have chickens. She sells our chicken eggs for Bitcoin, and she uses Mana to do it. And so she can actually just go into the app and create like a point of sale shop and start accepting Bitcoin payments. And it's easy enough for my 9-year-old to do it. So that was kind of the other point, is to make it super easy. So Mana really is, we have a big part of our focus on merchant adoption, like you mentioned. Being able to allow businesses, mostly small businesses right now, is what it's most geared toward, to be able to accept Bitcoin. But in order to do that, we also had to have a very robust and simple wallet solution. So just being able to send and receive Bitcoin, right? That's layer one, in our stack essentially. And then on top of that, we have these merchant solutions, which allow you to, add products and services. Like you mentioned, you can add tips and taxes if you're into that sort of thing, as I say. But if you're like maybe you're some kind of a barber or a wait staff at a restaurant. If you accept tips, you can very easily add that to the app too. It makes exporting transactions and reporting very easily. And I'll add one thing that I think is one of my personal favorite aspects of Manna is when you're running a shop like this in Manna, we call it a store. Um, when you set up that transaction and you pay that Lightning invoice, it creates a Lightning invoice. When it's paid, both parties get a receipt essentially. So inside of the notes in the invoice, both parties are getting that receipt, which is really cool because you don't need to print out a separate receipt, and it still allows you to do things like if you have to come back for a refund or a dispute or something like that. Both parties have a copy.
But that's an awful lot you've done already. I think it's gone quite a long way. I mean, I like the idea of the receipts. That's what merchants want to see, and of course, users want to see. And of course, it's self-custodial, which is essential. And you mentioned something that's very close to our hearts here in Bulgaria. We are the 21st. There may be a coincidence there somewhere. Country to be adopting the euro from the 1st of January
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
2026. Yeah. So, what's been very interesting for both Nasco and myself is talking to people here in Bulgaria. We sometimes have a bit of a head start in the respect that there's a built-in mistrust. Obviously, well, not obviously, this was a communist era country that between 1944 and 1989 we had communism here. So there's a mistrust of government, and when people talk about the euro, it's fairly split about their enthusiasm for it, 50-50. I did a poll myself, and in fact, it was marginally less enthusiastic about the euro. But that's not really the point because it's coming. But when you say, hold on a moment, have you heard about a CBDC, this digital euro thing? And to be fair, not everybody has. And then they go, okay. Is that the thing like they've been trialing in China? And I say, yes, it's very similar technology, and it's programmable money, and it's going to be sold. Christine Lagarde, the European Central Bank, head of European Central Bank lady, seems very enthusiastic about this technology, and for obvious reasons. And this one seems to be really turning people on here in Bulgaria. They go, we don't like to be surveilled, we don't like to be controlled, and it pushes people quite nicely to the desire to have something other than a euro, and particularly the CBDC. That whether it will come in or not, who knows? I mean, but it's just the fear of it that's a bit interesting. And so Manna is now, just going back to your app, is being used by how many venues or businesses it's in the US mainly, is it, or is it elsewhere?
That is a good question, and I like that you asked that because the answer is we don't know because we don't track
Great.
our user data. Now we have some general insight to the activity that's happening because we use swaps, and so we can see how many swaps that are taking place and the transaction volume and things like that. There are quite a few that I know of that I've personally got to use the app, the program. There are some local shops. There's a coffee shop. We've got somebody that makes tallow-based lotions and soaps, and we have a lot of small, like kind of almost what we would call a farmer's market type of user, and that's kind of our general audience. We also have one very large user, and it's a city. So the government, the city of Roswell, New Mexico, is also using Manna to accept their payments. They have a strategic reserve, a legally recognized strategic reserve, where they keep their Bitcoin. And if you want to send payments over the Lightning Network, they have their own Lightning address. It's roswell@mannabitcoin.com, and anybody can donate to them using that address. They've already received a significant amount of Bitcoin. So that's pretty cool. That's our kind of our biggest, I guess, institutional type customer.
Wow, congratulations. That has a real impact, doesn't it? Someone of size accepting Bitcoin and Bitcoin Lightning payments
Mhm.
is tremendous. Nasco, do you want to say something there? No, he's still got a technical issue, I
No,
think.
yeah, I just want. I'm just curious about where you live. So basically, it's not a small city, let's say. And what's the merchant adoption there in terms of how many? Let's talk about restaurants because these are the places where you actually on regular basis you go and spend money. And you did mention the farmers market, which is something which Kyle. Because he's based in Seattle, and by the way, he's running this podcast via Satoshi, and he mentioned about the farmers market there, and he said the scale there is around 30, let's say 30 different farms, so people selling different things. They show up, and let's say 200 or 300 people come in and just buy something with Bitcoin. So how do you define the size of currently of the market there?
Around me, it is quite abysmal. It's not good, and just full transparency, that's not for lack of trying. You know, I have a we have a meetup group that I'm a part of. It's we just call ourselves the KC Bitcoiners. Stands for Kansas City Bitcoiners, and we've been going for a number of years. We've got a very strong group of individuals. Within that group, the ecosystem is very strong. So we have people that show up and they buy and sell all kinds of different things. We have somebody that does raw whole milk. We do, cheeses. We do meats. We do salsa, which is like a dip. You chips and dip. Somebody makes homemade salsa, and it's delicious, by the way. Somebody makes custom apparel like shirts and drink koozies that keep your drink cold, and things like that. And so we all have this circular economy within the Bitcoin group. But as far as outside of that, in the normal, people, political currency world, the adoption's fairly low. We have one coffee shop that we regularly attend that takes it, and then we have a car dealership that takes Bitcoin in our area. We have a grill manufacturer. They make grills that you cook food on. They take Bitcoin. There are some there's a church in the area. I'm just like, these are some of the things that are on BTC Map. If you're familiar with btcmap.org, um, there's just some odds and ends type stuff. Obviously, we have well, maybe it's not obvious, but there is a fast food chain called Steak and Shake. It's multinational. I don't know if there's any out where you guys are, but they are in parts of Europe and in the Middle East, and obviously in the United States. Um, but they accept Bitcoin directly as payment. So you can walk into this very large franchise chain restaurant and order your food with Bitcoin, which is really cool because they are by far the best to do this at scale, and it's very very easy, very very simple. They have a kiosk. You walk in, you can order your food on this kiosk and have it generate a QR code for a Lightning invoice, and then you pay it, and then you pay it within seconds, and they start making your food, and it's a great experience.
Amazing and very cool that he's changed the logo to orange. I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They also they also mentioned that they're going to be renovating. I don't know if you saw any of the renders of the renovations that they're proposing, but they're going to be renovating all the restaurants, and they're all going to be orange, solid orange on the inside.
Wow.
Yeah.
So cool. So is the because we're kind of doing something very similar in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
Is there? It's great when you get a chain like Steak and Shake that you've clearly got a CEO who has the power and the enthusiasm and all the passion to do it. But when you're getting the barber, the coffee shop, the grocers, etc., um, I, is there a main reason why people are reticent? Is it a tax thing as well that's putting them off? I'm interested to hear from your part.
Yes, I would say the tax aspect of it is certainly off-putting to a lot of people. Of course, it's perfectly legally you can legally accept Bitcoin for your products and services. It's not illegal to do that, but it does require a little bit of extra work to track the taxes. Now, fortunately, built into Manna, we have all of that information available, so it makes things really easy and simple. If you're accepting Bitcoin as payment, each transaction, we record the cost basis for you. So when you do an export, you can just send that to your tax professional, or upload it to whatever software you use. So that does make it a lot easier, but it's still a hesitation for a lot of people. I think maybe at some point we'll have some more favorable regulation that potentially lets us have fun with our bitcoins a little bit more, without the burden of that tax. But I'd say that's probably the biggest drawback. One thing I'd also mention is right now, I think it's what I found is it's just still really early, and the I think my personally the best strategy that I have right now is providing a product that Bitcoiners who already understand Bitcoin and the value proposition of accepting it as payment and using it as a medium of exchange. That's my current target audience. I've tried pushing it toward the quote unquote normie land, and it's just been a brick wall. And so I think what's going to happen is we're going to need to penetrate the Bitcoiner world first, and these are Bitcoiners first that happen to have businesses. So a Bitcoiner that runs a coffee shop, a Bitcoiner that runs a restaurant, a Bitcoiner that has these other businesses, and these are the people that we're going after first. This is the low hanging fruit, and then the people around them, when they start to finally wake up from their sleep or their coma, whatever condition they have, then there will be a solution for them. But I think going and approaching a business, at least in my experience, approaching businesses and business owners that don't understand Bitcoin first is a much steeper hill to climb.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think they're calling it a de minimis legislation in the US.
Yes.
I so hope that gets through. I mean, I think this will be like possibly the biggest news actually, because it just unburdens people from this whole thing. I've got some sort of tax liability of, I don't know, a few dollars if I spend a bit on a meal or something. It just removes all of that nonsense, fingers crossed for that one. It'd be an amazing win, because that will influence, by the way, Europe and the rest of the world, hopefully.
I believe it's coming. I really, truly do. I'm optimistic and hopeful about it. I think my theory is that they, most of us may already know, the United States has been toying around with the idea of establishing their own strategic reserve and adding to it. So basically, buying Bitcoin for the sovereign country of America. Now, regardless of how you feel about that, that's a totally separate subject. But my point is, my theory is that they want to do that first before they introduce some type of regulation for the de minimis tax, or however you want to frame it, or maybe even no capital gains taxes on Bitcoin. If you want to go to that extreme, but I think they're going to do what I said first, because if they do it in the opposite order, they know that the price, the USD price of Bitcoin, the fiat price of Bitcoin is going to skyrocket first, and they don't want that to get out of hand. So they want to acquire as much Bitcoin, I think, as possible. And I think that's why they're going to do it in this order.
Okay, that's very interesting. I like that very much. Okay, Nasco, you back online, I think.
Yes, I am. Yeah, I'm listening carefully here. So, yeah, that's very interesting to hear that, because we had many chats from guys from the States and elsewhere, and so far one of the biggest circular economies we've that actually we can say it's a circular economy, because there are many places in the world that they're going towards a circular economy, but we are nowhere there yet. But Berlin and El Salvador, which made a huge impression, and we had a podcast with Evelyn, and they're also on a stage where they already had the tipping point where she doesn't need to call anyone, and they call her sometimes, because when you see your peers, or if you're a restaurant, then you're looking at what your neighbors are doing, and when they see a neighbor is accepting Bitcoin, and things start to happen. And pretty much the same, because Steak and Shake may be the massive chain which will scale the things, but probably other restaurants will look at them, and 100% they are currently. And that's basically not a question, but we had a chat with Nathan from BTC Map, and I'll raise that again. And he said BTC Map won't be needed because at some point of time, everyone will accept Bitcoin, most of them, so will be irrelevant. But I would say, yes, that's true. But if you go and spend your sats with Stake and Shake, it's not necessary sats will be staying as sats in the network, and that's a problem for me. If I'm spending sats, I want to go somewhere where I know this guy will keep the sats and later will spend the sats, and that's not like the 100% case with Stake and Share. And probably we'll need to know which of these merchants is actually keeping the sats and doing something with the sats rather than doing an exchange. What do you think about that?
I have an opinion on that, and it's actually something that I spoke about in Las Vegas at the Bitcoin Magazine conference on a panel. And this is what I have to say about that. Yes, ultimately, I do agree with your conclusion. I think it is very important for us to prioritize businesses that are keeping Bitcoin, they're using Bitcoin in the circular economy. Maybe they're funding some of their operations with Bitcoin, their supply chain is Bitcoin denominated, things like these examples. If we can prioritize doing business with Bitcoiners, that is the number one priority, if it's possible. But where I disagree is I don't think it is a net negative to spend Bitcoin with somebody who directly sells it for dollars. And my argument there is I'm going to go spend, let's just say 25 USD at Stake and Shake, and they directly sell it for dollars. Let's just give that example. I'm not saying they do, but let's just assume that's what happens. At that point, what happens? A $25 sale on Bitcoin, that's not, I mean, that doesn't even matter. That's not even measurable, in terms of the volume, the buy and sell volume on Bitcoin. It's not going to make much of a difference at this point. Now, early on, that argument had a lot more weight, I think, but now that's as bad as it gets. Think of all the bonuses that adds, though, all of the benefits that you get from being able to buy your items, your goods, your food with Bitcoin. It improves your personal privacy. It improves your sovereignty. It separates your connection to the fiat system. You can completely opt out at this point. The benefits are unimaginable. And so, yes, even if Stake and Shake, in this example, if they were just converting directly to dollars, yeah, that's not ideal. It'd be ideal if they didn't, if they just kept it as Bitcoin on their balance sheet or something like that. But that's okay. Even if they're just selling it for dollars or euros or whatever it is, you get so many more benefits out of that. And what that does is it encourages other people to join the same circular economy because it improves the infrastructure, it improves the understanding of the market and being able to use Bitcoin as payment. And so, you have Stake and Shake, but then let's just say one of their competitors wants to get into Bitcoin too. Now Stake and Shake is advertising Bitcoin. They're advertising for the Bitcoin economy too. It helps everybody. And that's one of the things that, I think Michael Saylor has referenced, and that is, we have strategy, and he's essentially created all of these competitors to his own business, right? But they're not really competitors because they a rising tide lifts all ships in this case. So I think it's ultimately, my point is, yes, I agree. I think that if we can seek out individual Bitcoiners, people that we know that are actually contributing to the Bitcoin ecosystem, that is priority number one. But even if you can't do that, and you still want to be able to grow the Bitcoin economy, I have nothing against somebody who wants to go buy something with Bitcoin from somebody who's selling, essentially selling their Bitcoin for dollars or whatever, because I think that's temporary as well. Because these companies, you think about these franchise owners at these Stake and Shakes, they're the ones that are actually receiving the money. So yes, there are a lot of Stake and Shakes that are immediately converting to dollars. I don't think it's all of them, but I certainly believe that it's that some of them absolutely are, and keeping no Bitcoin. But how long are they going to do that until they realize that they made the wrong choice? Eventually they're going to figure it out. And I think that's the big key.
Yeah, we totally agree with you because
Yeah.
we see this with our supporting
Yeah,
restaurants.
yeah.
At first, they were, wanting the lever, as we call it here, until 1st of January, the euro. But when we start talking about the SATs, and we've had a SATs back campaign to motivate the restaurant owners. And we go, do you realize you have got these number of SATs? They go, hold on, how come? I said, well, the price has doubled or more since. They go, really? And this is the whole marketing of price. We're not here to talk about price, but of course it's a wonderful marketing thing to get the medium of exchange idea going with venue owners. So I actually totally agree with you. I think everything has a stage. Everything, you can't go from 0 to 10. It's 0 to 1, and move on from there. Let's go.
Yeah, I think what you, Adam, said is a great conclusion on why it's important to spend your sats even if they convert. And what in my mind I was thinking about, because most of the places, the first thing they actually reject when you say, okay, do you want to accept? They feel the risk and they don't want to risk. That's the initial reaction. Say, okay, I'll have it and I'll lose it, or it will just lose the value. What we did in our app is we're actually showing all the transaction, as you said, for accounting purposes. And because of the trend right now, they're just looking back in time, saying, I could have had more, but I did convert them. So therefore, yeah. So I think it's a very good point, and thank you for that good explanation. It totally makes sense.
So forgive me, I haven't checked out your app, but do you guys actually keep a record of essentially how much value they could have additionally
Yes.
had? Okay. So they're able to
We,
see that and get that FOMO.
Yeah, yes, 100%, because we need to know that transaction happened, because we have this Satsback initiative, and we know that we have to top up 10% on top of the beer and give it to the owner. I think this is how we are orange pilling the guys. But anyway, I think it was a great chat. Lance, I think your battery is running out.
Yeah, it's been one of those days. Both of us
Yeah.
having a few issues technologically wise, but I think the point is Adam, your passion for building the app that's helped onboard other venues, and focusing first with the Bitcoin enthusiasts, getting them all working. And when this legislation changes, and when, of course, Square will pop up in about a couple of million venues very shortly in the US, and sometime later in Europe, I think. Then we need to be ready. We need to be ready, because I think I get a feeling, I don't know whether you agree, Adam, that things are about to really get super interesting.
Yeah, it seems to be. I mean, you got the energy of I won't call it the all-time high. We'll call it the all-time low in fiat, right? So fiat has reached an all-time low
Love it.
in Bitcoin terms. But all the energy around that, I think, is very um, uh, it's very attractive, right? And people start talking, and you get the buzz going. And I think we're really we're at the beginning, what I feel, of like this manic phase. And if you've been around Bitcoin for a while, we all know that Bitcoin has these cycles, and that's not to say that the cycles aren't dead, because there are plenty of people who would argue to say no, cycle theory's a thing of the past. This time is different, as they would say, but I'm not one of those people. I do think that we will continue to have some cycles for a while, but it really feels reminiscent of the mania around 2017, and the mania around when we had Michael Saylor and Strategy, and then we had El Salvador picking up speed just a few years ago. So I think it's coming back. But one thing I'll say is I don't think that the retail is here yet. They're coming. They're coming back. And that's the start of this, I think. So I'm really excited to see what happens in the next few months. This is a good time to start really testing out our products and our services. I think we're going to get a real test out of that. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
It's absolutely the same feeling here, and yeah, things will be better. The best is yet to come, as we say. Yeah.
so Adam, is there anything that we should have asked you that we didn't ask you at all?
Hmm.
That's a good question.
It's a very broad question, but no, there's nothing on my mind where I think we really missed anything. I'll just say, I think it's awesome that we have so many people like you guys that are fighting for using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. I think that's an important flag to carry. And I think that there's certainly a lot of people who will fight us on that. You guys have probably figured that out by now, but there are lots of trolls online that like to fight against Bitcoin being used as a medium of exchange just because somebody on some podcast sometime told them that it's capital, not currency. And I don't buy into that.
I don't buy it. And just look, guys, we love spending sats. It just feels right, doesn't it? The magic is there. I still love doing it. It's just brilliant. So that's what I'd say to anybody watching what either you are saying, we're saying, and others. Do spend those sats. I know it's like a next step because it's a multi-level thing, isn't it? Then first orange pilling, then it's considered a commodity, and then people spend sats quite often. This is the progress, and we're trying to move people to let those sats flow. You use these lightning wallets like Manna and venues to accept, and they just feel that magic. Wow, and no one in between the transaction. So we're totally with you on that.
Yeah, Lance, I really want to ask just a pretty easy question. Like, when was the first time you spent sats, and what did you purchase?
Good one.
Oh,
Is that directed to me?
Yes, exactly. Your first sat spent. What did you buy, and how much does it cost today?
Man, I don't know. It's been so long. It would have been probably somewhere in 2017. You know what? Early on, I got the Cash App card. They had like a debit card. I don't know if they're still doing that, but I got the Cash App card, and what I would do is I would mine Bitcoin. I would send it to Cash App, and then I would swap it to dollars as I was like sitting down at a restaurant, for example. I remember I went to a restaurant with my family, and I took some sats that I mined, sent it over to Cash App, sold it for dollars, and then paid. So I don't know if that counts, but it was very expensive in today's Bitcoin terms.
What was 2017? What was 2016? It was 600-700, and 2017. What was the price?
Yeah, it was probably around 3,000.
3,000 then. Yeah, 3, in the summer of 2015, we had the war, the block size wars going on. And so if people are interested, I filmed Nasco's first transaction in a cafe in Sofia, a few 2016. Beers. Yeah, in 2016. It was about May, June, I think, something like that.
On chain. And the beer that I purchased is now $400, I believe. But I'm really glad because we got it on YouTube. And we see nowadays really funny moments. It's not like the pizza purchase, but again, having this stored on YouTube, that's a cool thing. And it's the beer I always remember. And that's a good thing as well. So
that's awesome. And if I can inject my own opinion, I think it's kind of silly. It's ridiculous for people to essentially mock people for spending their Bitcoin. Like, oh, you spent how much Bitcoin on your $400 on a beer? You're stupid. Like, no, what you did is you participated in a system that the government couldn't intervene in. Nobody could stop.
Yeah.
It was completely, between two peers. And you had, you maintained your privacy, you maintained your sovereignty, and you helped build what is becoming the Bitcoin circular economy. Without people going and spending their Bitcoin, that doesn't happen.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, so let's wrap up. It was fabulous to have you here on the show. For everyone watching, just you can always check. We'll leave your links, Adam, in the description, and of course we'll leave all the moon links. And we've got something to celebrate here because we have 21 restaurants in Sofia. This is the capital of Bulgaria, where you can actually spend sats.
Thank you very much for having me.